My name is Eli Azariev, and I'm here to make a video today on how I personally communicated with a friend or a loved one who's passed away and left our physical world. Now, this person was somebody I grew up with, somebody we went to barbecues with as kids, somebody who wasn't my best friend, wasn't somebody I hung out with as much as I'd like to. And I know the same goes for him, because after he passed, he expressed feelings to me that let me know that he knows that he meant a lot to me in my life, and that he wishes that we were a little bit closer. But that means nothing more or less to me, because of the fact that I'm simply satisfied to know that he felt what I went through in my sorrow. And he was also disappointed about other people who he thought were his closer friends, that he didn't feel that spiritual love and that spiritual emotion coming out of them when he passed away. For the sake of not mentioning his real name, I'm going to call him Nathan. Now, Nathan was murdered about a year and a half ago. He was shot to death. And he was actually murdered 2 blocks away from where I currently reside. Now, I don't reside in a bad neighborhood. We actually live in a very beautiful community. And I didn't expect the night that I heard the gunshots to actually be gunshots. I thought maybe it was fireworks. Who knows? But deep down inside, in my heart that night, I felt something so wrong. I felt such pain. And I was just so confused because I couldn't put my finger on what was going on, what happened. The next morning, I received a phone call from somebody who is an acquaintance, but not a good friend of ours in the circle. And he said, your friend Nathan was murdered last night. Now, in complete disbelief and shock, I simply hung up the phone and started dialing our closer friends. And I dialed one of our friends. Let's call him Simon. He picked up the phone, and he was broken down completely in tears, crying. Once I heard that, he didn't even have to say a word to me. I started bashing the walls in my bathroom, collapsed on the floor, just completely broken down as a man in tears. And I'm a person who I'm emotional, but when I was younger, I used to kind of block these emotions. But this was just something I could not control. I fell on the floor weeping uncontrollably. And I was affected by his death so greatly. It was just one of the most hardest things that I had to go through in terms of losing a friend. And I've lost several friends, but this particular person affected me the most. So much that I even tattooed his name with a rest in peace tattoo to honor him. And I personally think that he was one of those people that when you walk in a room with him, you feel his love and his energy radiating to such a high vibration frequency that it was impossible to be in a room with him and not be drawn to him, not want to hang out with him and speak with him. He was just one of those people that could light up a room the second he walks into it. He loved all of his friends. He was very caring. Now, I'm going to tell you guys how it came to be that I actually was able to communicate with him. One night I fell asleep and I was having a lucid dream. Now, I realize I'm lucid if you watch my other videos, because I look at my hands, and once I see that they're not my hands, I instantly become lucid and in full control of that dream. Now, in that dream, it was me, Nathan, and a couple of our friends. Now, I knew that our friends that were in the dream were there because he wanted them to be there. I know I was in control of the dream. I could have simply removed them, but I didn't, due to the fact that I wanted him to experience that joy. Now, he knew that I was the only one lucid in that dream. He came up to me and hugged me. And without even speaking, through telepathy, when he hugged me, I felt him tell me, I know now who my real friends were because of how deeply you were affected by my death. And I want you to know that our friendship will be eternal. And that made me overwhelmed with joy and happiness and love, because it was just vibrating off of him and onto me. He showered me with that love and that joy and that thankfulness that he had, knowing that I was actually his friend. And I felt that joy, I felt that love from him radiating when he hugged me. Now, what happened next was, it was honestly something that, it was probably one of the most beautiful things. Now, in the dream, him and I, along with a bunch of our friends, were leaving a restaurant as we normally would do if he was alive. We were dressed up in beautiful suits, and we were running down the street. For some weird reason, setting off car alarms. Now, like I said before, I chose not to interrupt because I'm lucid. I could have stopped any of those actions from going on because I felt like these were things that he wanted to project. So I let them continue just to see the joy in everyone's faces. And we were doing something so childish and minor, like setting off car alarms. However, everyone was laughing, including me, with the utmost joy and happiness. We felt like little kids, and the joy was just indescribable in that dream. I personally think that those were the most amazing memories I have, and they were in the dream state. And I'll never forget this, and I cherish it till this day. Now, he told me after we were done running down the street laughing, he told me, he's like, I want you to know that I'm in a better place, and I want you to tell people that I'm in a better place. And he said, I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate the amount of emotion that you showed and love that you showed for me. I seen that when you were burying me, because he seen that when we were burying him, I was one of the people in the front throwing dirt on his grave, and I was just crying uncontrollably. Just, and like I said before, I'm a person who doesn't really show emotions, but I felt this deep connection to the person, and I knew that he would be so missed. He was such a good friend to all of us, and he told me something. And how he told me was this: he started running down the street and jumping. And every time he jumped, he'd get higher and higher and higher. And every time he jumped, he'd get so high, it was almost like he's flying. And I said, hey, Nathan, bro, I didn't know you could fly. He said, oh, you didn't know I could fly? He goes, ask Marina. She'll tell you how I fly. Now, Marina is his wife. And me and her weren't that close because, that's his wife. I knew her on a name-to-name basis, but me and her didn't have a relationship to where I could just randomly message her and explain to her, hey, look, I'm into astral traveling and lucid dreaming, and I feel like I want to tell you something, because I felt like I'd sound crazy. And I know some of you could relate to what I'm saying if you guys had ever had this situation or anything similar in regards to astral traveling. If you want to tell somebody who's never heard this, they might think you're crazy, they might laugh, or they might just get offended, especially in this situation. However, I felt like it was my job and my duty to go ahead and relay that message, because that was his will and that was his request of me as a friend to go ahead and say that. Now, little did I know that by doing this, what was going to happen. It took a couple months for me to muster up enough courage, and I ended up contacting his wife. And I messaged her online and I said, hey, it's Eli, I need to speak to you. There's something I need to tell you, and I hope you don't look at me like I'm crazy or weird, but I just need to tell you. And she gave me a call later that night, and me and her spoke on the phone for about 2 hours. I explained to her everything that I do in terms of astral travel and lucid dreaming and spirituality and consciousness, and she had a pretty easy time understanding and comprehending what I'm speaking about, because I believe she said she had a family member who was into stuff like this. So she was very open-minded, thank God. And I explained to her that in this dream, he told me he wanted me to tell you that he's all right and he's in a better place. And then I started telling her the story about how he was jumping and saying, "What, you didn't know I could fly?" Laughing. And then he said, "Ask Marina." And I said, "Does that mean anything to you?" And here's when things got insane. She starts breaking down crying, telling me, "Eli, did he really say that?" I said, "On everything I love." Those were his words, word for word. And she said every time he used to be in the house, he used to run around through the house like a maniac when he was alive, jumping around, jumping really high and saying, "What, Marina, you don't know I could fly?" And that was his way of solidifying that that message would be confirmed on both ends in the real world and in the 3D world. That I would tell her that, and then she would confirm that he really says this. Now, me, I had no idea what that meant. And that communication and that experience I shared with him made me and him spiritually connected, even though he's passed on. And I feel like anytime I want to communicate with him, I could simply do so by thinking of him and putting all my thoughts and intentions onto his being and onto his presence, even though he's no longer with us. And that's just one way that I've had a legitimate experience in contacting somebody who's passed away. If you guys have any questions or want to share your stories, or if you've had anyone who's passed away, please feel free to comment in the comment section below. And please subscribe. If you have any videos you'd like for me to make, let me know. I'll make them. Thank you guys. Have a great night. Eli Zariev.